Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International for Monday the 24th of November 2025. And we are on to program number 1491 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Of course, in addition to 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com. And we are streaming live on our Facebook link. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And of course, we also do have YouTube as an option as well. Now, in just a bit, we're going to be taking a bit of a dive into an analysis of the United Workers' Party manifesto, which was in fact revealed or launched yesterday at a rally in La Caille. And so we're going to be discussing that with an individual who's got lots of political experience from the background, so to speak, and lots of public service knowledge, Mr. Darrell Monthrop, former Cabinet Secretary. But first, a bit of history for today. In the year 1859, the English naturalist Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species, radically changing the view of evolution and laying the foundation for evolutionary biology. 1950, on this day, UN troops began an assault intending to end the Korean War by Christmas. And in 1974, on this day, the most complete early human skeleton, that of Lucy, and she was an Australopithecus, was discovered by Donald Johansen, Morris Taib, Eve Coppens, and Tim White in the middle awash of Ethiopia's Afar Depression. We now head into our dish of the day.
Our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. I hope you had, of course, a very good weekend. For many Catholics, yesterday was an important end of the Jubilee year. And, of course, there was a celebration over at the Minor Basilica of the Immaculate Conception yesterday afternoon. The end of the liturgical year, the Feast of Christ the King. And in fact, it was supposed to be a quiet day of reflection. That was the hope of His Grace the Archbishop. But it seems, of course, that the political season seems to have prevailed in the case of the United Workers' Party heading down to La Caille to unveil their manifesto. And really, of course, to unpack some of the aspects and to get some thoughts on that manifesto being put forward by the United Workers' Party. A view from the other side, perhaps one might say. And of course, I'm very pleased to welcome Mr. Darrell Monthrop. He is the former Cabinet Secretary of St. Lucia. Of course, a lot of experience in the public service as permanent secretaries in many different ministries and different portfolios. And of course, also right now, St. Lucia's representative over in Miami. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Alex.
Now, manifestos. Your take, in fact, of if they even matter at all.
I mean, I want to think that they do matter because they do lay out what a party hopes to do during its tenure. Of course, we have to be able to assess it and determine its level of realism, okay? And to even contrast that against the record of, this past his prologue or your history will tell what one should expect from you. And looking at the UWP manifesto, I mean, I am not sure if to laugh or if to cry. and I mean that in a very serious enough way. Laugh because it seems laughable, it is risible, and weep as to the offense to our own intelligence. And I mean, I start off with the first page of the manifesto, not even the cover, forget the cover and the stature, the projection of the political leader, but with the political leader's message. And having read it, I'm like, was he staring in the mirror, going through his own epiphany, and saying, these were all of my failures, and hence let me project that onto someone else? Because this is all that I would have seen in there. Because the statements that he has made in his message certainly bears no proximate comparison to the current reality. It seems to mirror or reflect more of what one could have attributed to his own tenure. To say that we are at a crossroad and that it is at a crossroad of betrayal, and that the Philippe Pierre administration promised to put people first but did nothing of the sort. I mean...
It's an interesting time right now because I think this is the first time in a very long time the St. Lucia populace is actually able to see back-to-back two individual leaders who have both served a term, 5 years, 2 months of Alan Chasney. Some may argue, and I've heard some of his supporters saying that his term should be treated differentially because of COVID-19. But even so, we've seen roughly, say, the first 4 years of an Alan Chasney regime from 2016 until 2019, and we've seen about 4 years of a Philippe J. Pierre period from 2021 until the current 2025. And so the public, the electorate, actually has an opportunity to compare two particular prime ministers and their record.
Absolutely. And I mean, I find it, again, laughable that the Alan Chasney or UWP supporters want to expunge 2020 COVID from his assessment of his performance. And whilst I have some sympathies or rather an understanding of the externalities, so that there are some global externalities or economic externalities that impacted the economy of St. Lucia, as in COVID, but externalities are a fact of life. It is those same externalities that has impacted or similarly impacted Philippe J. Pierre's administration, because the fallout of COVID was not limited to 2020. The fallout of COVID created a backlog of production, and that when the global economy opened up, it created its own inflationary pressures. So if you want to exclude these global pressures, those external pressures, and say this excuse, Alan is to get an excuse for this, then the same should apply to Philippe J. Pierre, that the war in Russia impacted, war in Israel impacted, COVID similarly impacted. And so let's just look at the management of those particular periods and see who performed better. And there is no way Alan Chasney's administration could hold what I would say a candle to Philippe J. Pierre.
Funnily enough, just today, somebody told me, and we were having a conversation about performance, and they actually pointed out that was the worst time for them. They, in fact, said that, I mean, as a citizen of St. Lucia, they felt affronted. They felt, that yes, things were difficult because of the measures, but there seemed to have been a level of oppression being felt by many a St. Lucian.
I mean, even separate from just the oppression, look, part of why St. Lucia was the worst performing economy in the Caribbean and among the 5th worst in the world were because of decisions taken prior to 2020. By 2019, the St. Lucian economy had contracted.
Gone negative, yes.
So it was not because of COVID we began going downhill. We went far downhill because of the decisions that he had taken prior to, misplaced priorities. And this is why Philip J. Pierre could have said, when he comes in, he would put you first. He would put the people of St. Lucia first, because the people of St. Lucia weren't prioritized prior to 2020, 2021.
It was also very telling, though, that, as you said, that backlog, effectively a lot of things were delayed. Payables, a very good example of that. The government was racking up a lot of debt, which in fact Philip J. Pierre administration then had to come to find the resources to be able to pay that back. I think even back pay of civil servants, $24 million, which had to be paid to Health City Cayman. These things were, I mean, lots of land acquisition payments that was dating for a very long time. The OKEU and the debt that had built up, a lot of that, of course, had to be handled by the Philip Pierre administration.
Absolutely. And it is Philip Pierre's stewardship. I mean, whatever people might want to say, Philip is not, and I mean, he had already stated it, he's not a showman. He's not a showman. He is about the rudimentaries, getting the things done. I mean, whether you want to call him in visionary, whatever it is, he has been able to steer the ship. He's been able to use his own heart, his own authenticity. Someone who is grounded with his people, has listened to them. So it's not only now he has to come around and say, sorry, I have changed. I will learn now to listen. He has always listened. He's always had heart. And hence the reason it was easy for him to put in measures to take care of those St. Lucian people. So whether they be the elderly or children or single mothers, he has always had that sense of connection with the people of St. Lucia. He doesn't have to pretend to drive in the back of a pickup truck or
put an FAR plate?
Put a FAR plate or go in a line by KFC.
Eat some
Tomaso bread. He had to do that because he's St. Lucian. He knows what that is. He don't have to pretend. People know him to be that type. And so when they go to him, they expect him to reflect their sensitivities, their sensibilities, and that he has obviously done, and the results are clear.
On another talk show sometime last week, I heard the leader of the opposition apologizing to the population, to St. Lucia, for what he said persons may have misinterpreted his actions, and was almost pleading with the electorate not to judge his party and his party platform by his actions in the past. Yes. I mean, that is an amazing plea for a party leader to be able to say that. Now, I mean, normally when party leaders lose, what they do is that they try to cut the baggage by resigning and allowing their party to be able to move forward to a new electoral cycle without that type of baggage. He stayed around. We've seen, of course, Mr. Guy Joseph, who's continuously been a very controversial figure. And not only has he been kept, but he has actually now been thrusted up to now be the deputy political leader of the United Workers' Party. Do you think Mr. Chastney is really sincere about this and his belief that he can somehow isolate his record from the chances of the United Workers' Party?
Well, I don't believe Mr. Chastney is sincere about anything, because he will say one thing one moment and flip the script the other moment, deny that he said it. I mean, when you even go back to some of the things that brought him some prominence before becoming prime minister, it included his statements about gas prices, fuel prices. And there was a program that I could recall where he said fuel prices in St. Lucia was whatever it is.
And he compared it to Grenada.
And compared it to Grenada.
And he said
JJ called him to...
In the very same program.
In the very same program. And he denied saying it. So this is just so typical of him.
There was the OES speech as well.
He said the OES speech. Then he will say about even the level of deportees. So he
800.
will make 800. So he will just make up any story at any time because it sounds good or he thinks it might carry him through the moment. But if people are tuned in, following, they know he is inauthentic. He is untrue and cannot and should not be trusted.
As a voter, then how do you balance that out? Because here you have a book of promises.
Sure.
And then, of course, you have the individual who's making those promises with lots of question marks in terms of trustworthiness. Obviously, the question is, how much is this promise worth?
Well, I want to hope voters are discerning they could see. I don't want to suggest that I am more discerning than anybody else. But I want to think people can see, if not with their eyes, they could feel with their bodies and their own lived experiences. Sometimes people fall for the chatter. This. But I am certain every elderly person or every pensioner knows what Philip J. Pierre has done for them. They don't need for some Alan Chasney to come and say life is worse or whatever. They know. All of them know that, whether they're government pensioner or NIC pensioner. Persons who have received, who are on public assistance, they know that. Every mother who has children of school age, they too know the benefits that has. Now, some might be, the middle class, they have enough money, they didn't need that, but that's up to them. If they didn't need the facilities fee paid for them, or if they didn't need CXC fees paid for them, they could have always returned that money or contributed to some other charitable cause. But they do know for sure
but
that is a problem that had been taken care of for them. They don't have that as a headache.
I don't hear the Ministry of Education having a problem of persons in the middle income people saying, well, we're not going to take the facilities fees for free, or we're not going to take the laptop, or we're not going to take any of these benefits, because everybody is looking for some kind of
they're looking
benefit.
for the benefit, and as they should, because these are, and sometimes, again, I wonder who these people talking about to say Philip Pierre's programs are handouts as opposed to hand-ups. So they're going to, but then again, if Alan Chasney has called people mendicants, no wonder he would treat them with such scant regard, not understanding the struggles. If you come from privileged background, I guess some of those things that you take for granted, you wouldn't be sensitive enough to a struggling single mother needing that as a lifeline.
But, if you are a South Louis Community College student and you're hearing this narrative now that, hey, I could be enjoying free tuition next year if a United Workers' Party government comes in, that may sound very attractive to you. But then, of course, on the other side of it, you may then be exposed to what he may have said a couple of years ago about South Louis Community College, that they, in fact, should be grateful for any support from the government, and was, in fact, almost suggesting that he should take some of that money and spread it around to other institutions.
It's not even during his tenure. Even how long ago? A few months ago, he was on Lisa Joseph's program, where he was speaking to the curriculum, and I'm going to keep using that word, curriculum,
right,
where he was suggesting the paring down of the college's syllabus or the curriculum to
fewer
options. So if you are a student of SAFA, yes, you certainly should be happy that or enchanted by the promise of free tuition. But if you're going to ask,
but you might have a program there for you.
What program would I be doing? Would he be paying my program, or must I only do those 4 subjects and stuff like that for you to get it? And that's the craziness of it. If we're talking about development and expansion of opportunity, how on earth can you be talking about paring down the subjects? That's the time you want to be expanding subjects, giving students more options to study.
And I didn't know that Arthur had such a broad range of subjects to begin with, that you would have to cut them back.
And that's the lunacy of this man. So he wants to have his cake and eat it, and he thinks he's slick. And he might get away with it in some instances, but for persons who are tuned in, they should be able to recognize that. And for me, I have only one passport. I am Lucian, born here, grow here, and stuff like that. My children in the same situation. Whilst I want my children to have as much opportunities, my nieces and nephews to have as much opportunities, I know where I'm from. I know the struggles that I have gone through. And I have not been the worst off. Thankfully for the opportunities I have had, it has opened new pathways. But can you imagine me being paid off in that kind of way? I mean, this is the craziness of this man. You want to slash the budget of SAFA, you don't think they're doing whatever it is. And now all of a sudden you've had your new epiphany because the Philip J. Pierre administration is paying CXCs. You want to match it with another giveaway, which is just not consistent with your own philosophy or how you have governed. And the things you've said, as I said, just a few months ago, not just whilst he was prime minister, just a few months ago, talking about paring down the syllabus of the curriculum of the South Louis Community College. I mean, this is lunacy. I mean, Philip JP has already spoken to and already given nursing education. So at least you see in healthcare being expanded. More students, if they're able to get through to the CXCs, could qualify for CXC, to attend SAFA. But you're just going to say, I'm bypassing all of that. I'm just going to go and give free education to SAFA. I mean, again, it's not to decry that.
Yeah, because I mean, in principle already, the education bill that is being proposed moving forward is in fact going to expand on the compulsory age. So I think it's right now it's from 5 to 16, and the intention is to actually bring it down to 3, I believe, up until 18. So in effect, it means that you're looking at universal early childhood education as well as universal post-secondary education being the mandate and of the government going forward. So it is in principle something that I think all parties would like to see happen.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and Philippe has the one university per household initiative. I mean, this is no trivial matter. This is transformational. I mean, Philippe, again, I will echo him. He's not a showman. He knows he's putting things in place because ultimately it is not about him having to beat his chest. It is about him putting systems in place for the people of St. Lucia, for the young people, for that future. Hence the reason he created that youth economy. When he first mooted the idea of a youth economy in 2021, people were rubbishing the idea. What is this? Why are you creating this? What exactly is a youth economy?
It seems to have fallen into the UWP manifesto now under a different
names, but they think, and I mean, again, I want to say the level of honesty of Alan Chasney, his level of dishonesty, be as charitable as you wish. For him to have suggested that he had such a program in place or left funds there for the development bank. Now, I mean, just see through the lie, the BS. So a bank, so he's saying he doesn't want another bureaucracy. So he's treating the youth economy agency as another bureaucracy. Not fit for purpose, I assume. But he thinks a bank would be giving grants. Just think of it, a bank.
I think he must have been referring to what was called the YEEF, which was something completely different.
But again,
which was an equity arrangement.
But that's the whole point of it. If he always have to be saying he misspoke, or we don't want to call him a liar, is either he does not know what he's talking about, or he's just simply misinformed. So when you're going to keep spouting things and then, that's not exactly what I mean, then you don't know exactly what you're talking about.
And from what I know, the SLDB is already partnered with the Youth Economy Agency.
Yes.
So that's
and the fact that he's jumped in on the ethos of the Youth Economy Agency, because now he's talking about giving grants, albeit that at a higher level. But it's the same principle. The very things you seem to have decried, now you want to think, because that's just for you a vote-catching thing. He will say anything. And to show the consistency of that philosophy, that ethos of his, whilst he had started off with the lie of the 680 on gasoline, on fuel.
He's now promising a reduction of gas.
But even before he promised a reduction, on the 680 that he had, he increased it by 150, the fuel excise tax.
Yes.
And that's the dishonesty.
And he did say it was going down when he was going to sign something.
I mean, it's just the craziness of this man.
Daryl, you need to catch your breath a little bit. I give you a break because we're actually due for our weather report at this time. So we'll end our dish of the day.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter. Home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
It's now time for our weather report, brought to you by Island Style.
Last year, boy, problems to get shipment of tiles in time for Christmas. This year, Island Style has enough tiles in stock to cover the whole of St. Lucia. And with our Christmas sales starting now, every tile is on sale. Island Style has massive stock, the widest variety, and the very best sale prices on quality tiles and natural stone in St. Lucia. Great deals on beautiful bathroom faucets, vanities and fixtures, tiling tools and accessories. Don't fall for no gimmicks anywhere else. Island Style's annual Christmas sale is unbeatable. Tiles for miles. Deals as far as the eye can see. Start your car, ride your bike, hop on a bus, and hurry down to Island Style Town and Bath now. Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewford. Check Facebook for more details.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And the forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the east and the east-northeast near 18 miles per hour or 30 kilometers per hour. Weather partly cloudy to occasionally cloudy skies with widely scattered showers. The forecast for the Lesser Antilles. Fair to occasionally cloudy skies with widely scattered showers. And your tropical weather outlook. The tropical high pressure system will maintain moderate easterly winds across the Lesser Antilles during the next few days. Moisture and convergence in the low level of the atmosphere will result in some showers over the region during the forecast period. Tropical cyclone formation is not expected over the tropical Atlantic during the next 7 days. And that is your weather report brought to you by Island Style.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Last year, boy, problems to get shipment of tiles in time for Christmas. This year, Island Style has enough tiles in stock to cover the whole of St. Lucia. And with our Christmas sales starting now, every tile is on sale. Island Style has massive stock, the widest variety, and the very best sale prices on quality tiles and natural stone in St. Lucia. Great deals on beautiful bathroom faucets, vanities and fixtures, tiling tools and accessories. Don't fall for no gimmicks anywhere else. Island Style's annual Christmas sale is unbeatable. Tiles for miles. Deals as far as the eye can see. Start your car, ride your bike, hop on a bus, and hurry down to Island Style Town and Bath now. Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewford. Check Facebook for more details.
Welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International, and we are taking on a very cursory look of the UWP's manifesto and speaking about the analysis of how one should look at a manifesto and what is critical. And I'm having that conversation with former Cabinet Secretary Mr. Darrell Montrop. Darrell, you, of course, have some institutional experience in respect of healthcare. Mm-hmm. I think you were formerly the permanent secretary within that ministry as well.
I was chief planner at the Ministry of Health even before
you were the chief planner before that. So you certainly had, earned your spurs in that sector, in the health sector. But I'm hearing the narrative out there right now by the opposition that healthcare is at its worst ever Your take on that?
Some people seem to have very short memories, or is it convenient memories? I mean, just prior to COVID, people were on cardboard laying down at Victoria Hospital, on cardboard. So not on gurneys, not on a chair seated, laying down on cardboard at Victoria. And I'm saying recently, that's under the Alan Chastanet administration, under the UWP administration. And you know what was happening at that time? OKEU was completed, needing to be commissioned, but was not. And that's where you're going to see about priorities. You think it's because people then there weren't shortages of medication or bed sheets or any of those some things. It is the misplaced priorities of the Alan Chastanet's tenure that have led us to where we are.
Because OKU was completed, I mean, it started like around 2008, 2009. In terms of the building itself, although I know work had started way before that in terms of the road access, the whole complex, the mental. But I'm just saying, by 2016, it was effectively complete. Equipped. And it did not open until
2020.
When COVID effectively pushed to the situation, the need for an isolation hospital, respiratory hospital, and we saw Victoria serving that purpose. Finally, OKU was opened.
Correct.
But with lots of losses in the process as well, in terms of equipment.
But this is precisely why COVID was so badly managed, because of the misplaced priorities. Because he had more than 3 years to commission OKEU. That he did not is a question because of who he wanted to do that. What were the arrangements that he had in mind or in place to do that? Now, remember, when he came in 2016, there was a transition team headed by Dr. Stephen King to prepare for the transitioning of staff and patients from Victoria to the OKEU.
And that was in sync with a plan for universal health care
Absolutely,
at the same time.
But he botched it. And so when we even thinking of because even his own staffing relations, the management of that arrangement was botched by himself. This is why we had even an exodus of nurses from the system. So it is not just we here now and this is the thing. People have to look at the antecedents. What did he do during his tenure that led to where we are?
One of the reports, the studies I recall that was informing this whole matter of health sector reform and the genesis of a new national hospital, OKU, was determining effectively, well, what number of beds do you need? What size of hospital do you require? And I think the figure was put somewhere around 225 beds being required for the entire island. Somehow that would have to be divided, whether it was how many in OKEU, how many was needed in St. Jude. But then we saw, of course, for different reasons, OKEU ended up being smaller. They cut off a finger, 30 rooms less. And then we saw St. Jude.
Right.
And that St. Jude fire had an impact of reducing the number of available beds in the south of the island.
Yeah. And I want us to truly examine and put the St. Jude's issue in a bigger context, which I don't think we have done adequately. And I say we as a country have thing. As you pointed out, OKEU had been in the planning stages for years. Because even going back prior to Kenny Anthony's administration, when Romanus Lancico, there was the match for building the hospital. And so we collected funds and we were going to do all of these things. Myself, I personally became involved in the hospital health sector plan in 2000 as chief planner. There's this Barbadian firm, Tomlin Voss, that was an architectural firm from Barbados that was initially challenged with managing and deciding where we're going to do, whether we're going to build,
upgrade
the
Victoria,
or to go and do a new site.
Right.
So from 2000. So this thing was being planned. They used a European firm, a Belgian firm, Hera. This is the firm that had done and did the costings and stuff and did what the bed count was going to be. all of the bed count was predicated on what we would have been doing at the primary healthcare sector, so that you would have had fewer persons needing to go up to hospital. So there was a rationale. But here's the thing, when we put in St. Jude's into perspective, OKEU began planning, even if we say 2000, but even if let's not even use 2000, from 2005, let's say I want to go to 2005 as opposed to 2000, though it's obvious that OKEU has been planned well before. In 2005, this British firm, John Snow, won the architectural design.
Right.
Okay? So that's to tell you the thing had all of these other things had already been in place, all of the forward plan. So the architectural design, 5 fingers. Kelly Anthony, to his credit, I mean, all of the 9th EDF had been programmed for health sector. So all of that money was to do the hospital. It was designed by the British firm, 5 Fingers, John Snow. By 2006, it had gone in for construction bidding. An Italian firm, Inzo, won that. So it's not even St. Lucian's for us to say we're decrying as to the quality of, because I heard people over the years saying because we don't have people in expertise in healthcare, that's why we had the problems. For OKEU, more than 10 years planning for and a dedicated line of funding for. And that by 2016 is when it was completed. So even took 10 years.
10 years.
Okay? St. Jude's, on the other hand, 2009 fire, not planned. Whilst we're building a national hospital, OKEU was in the midst of construction.
Right.
So the government of St. Lucia, the state certainly did not have monies to fund another hospital in the south, okay, another major hospital. But I want to further contextualize St. Jude's. 2008 was the global financial meltdown. So money is not available for governments to just go out into the market and raise monies. It wasn't. So by 2009, an unplanned situation and the state have to deal with it.
Right.
But worse, I mean, and I want to slow down, is by 2010, we know what happened in St. Lucia in 2010? Thomas. So the island's infrastructure was destroyed. So the state, again, did not have monies to say, we're just getting a whole set of money to go and think, all whilst OKEU is being built, whilst they have to find money to redevelop the island's infrastructure. All these contributed to where St. Jude's, or why St. Jude's became. Now,
and just to make the point too, by 2011, when there was a change in November, that at that time, the economic impact was having a major pinch on the fiscal. So I think that the deficit level was about 10%.
Yes.
I think, so you had a significant hole in the government's finances at that point.
And this is why, I mean, people think I keep blaming Alan Chasney for everything, but it's not blaming without reason. There is no way Stevenson King, his administration, could have completed a brand new hospital within 2009 and 2011 when he lost. There's no way. I mean, never mind all of his optimism and the stated
I mean, I think the first thing he said was it was going to cost $2 million US, and it will be finished in 6 months. And we knew that couldn't happen.
That couldn't happen. That was impractical. But when Kenny Anthony came in 2011, there were no funds available for construction of that hospital. None. But he knew it had to be done. He certainly understood all of the implications and why the scope of that hospital was increased, because this is a major hospital for the South and the airport and everything else. So the scope of that hospital was in fact increased, okay, with good reason. But here's the further challenge that Kenny Anthony administration faced. People seem to be forgetting that 2013-14, 4 of the islands of the OECS had structural had IMF programs. All investors had to take a haircut. Okay? Dominica defaulted, Antigua, St. Kitts, Grenada. Ironically, all 4 of these islands have CIP programs. Okay? St. Vincent is the other independent one that does not have a CIP, and St. Vincent didn't face that cut. Neither did St. Lucia. But these were the context. So when people were criticizing, saying Kenny couldn't even get to borrow money, it wasn't Kenny's own personal financial situation. It was
the
truly
ECCU.
The ECCU.
There was
at
fear
of there was fear of contagion. People were,
and there were issues with the banks, which were holding on to NPLs, non-performing loans.
Yes, exactly. So all the government could have done is short-term money. So it couldn't borrow long-term to finance some of those things. Again, people don't, and Kenny Anthony deserves a lot of credit. why we went to Trinidad to get a little money to help continue St. Jude's. So there was there's more than just laptops, also for St. Jude's. I mean, what is the bigger thing was that for St. Jude's, and then ultimately when he got the monies from Taiwan.
Right. The $20 million US loan, which ironically was available then in 2016 under the Alan Chasney regime. And then they used that money towards the box.
Towards the box. And here's the point. So when people were being all so, and it's not because I don't understand. In 2016, and I want people to juxtapose this. In 2016, at the time of the election, when there was all this animated response about St. Jude's being incomplete, OKEU was similarly in a state of at least non-commissioned.
Right. Even though it had started before and that it had monies. Yes.
And so much so, while it had monies, it certainly did not even have enough money to do the 5 fingers as was initially designed.
Right.
So it was impractical to have expected that hospital to have been completed in 2016. It really was not. But there was a lot of politics and emotion, and it got the better of the country. But in comes Alan Chasney, and what does he do? Does he seek to continue even when they had monies available and that the hospital was at a sufficiently advanced stage?
Right.
He didn't complete it. And even when he got FDL to do the audit never said abandon that structure and stuff. It suggested that it could have been continued with modifications, as has happened now and as is being proven. And this, I think, is why there is such angst about this hospital because it proves that this facility could have been used to deliver healthcare to the people of the South and St. Lucia, as opposed to diverting attention and resources to the box.
But a Guy Joseph and Alan Chasney sat under a Stephenson King in cabinet and approved the decision to go ahead with upgrading St. Jude at the original site with the quote-unquote old building, which they're now calling it. They sat there and they approved it.
Again, because it's some narrative that they're trying to think. They have wasted the people's time and money. And the people of the South, and not just the people of St. Lucia need to punish them for it. They need to be punished, and I don't mean in any necessary physical, violent way.
In the box, in the
ballot box. They need to be rejected. There must be a complete repudiation of them and that type of thinking. Because if they had prioritized the people's health and well-being, that would not have been where we are. Because he himself focused on a lost leader, the horse race track. That's his word, that it's a lost leader, not mine. Yet he prioritized that ahead of. So when people going to just be going as if it is COVID that prevented them from delivering the hospital, it really wasn't. It was the misplaced priorities.
Well, furthermore, he stopped the project in August of 2016. And it was not until, I think, 2019. September or thereabouts, November, when work actually even started on St. Jude, the new box that is.
On the box. So, I mean, you squandered 3 years effectively.
Yes.
So it had nothing to do with St. Jude.
In fact, most of the box was actually built during COVID.
Yes, no, but
ironically.
The ironies of ironies. To hear Guy Joseph say that they had no plan, they did this, no that, blah, 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 blah. Up till now, we never heard from the UWP administration, Guy Joseph, Alan Chasney, how much the box was going to cost.
Right. Well, in fact, just last night, we had John Peters on a program, and he indicated, he was part of the technical committee, and that report indicated that based on their assessment, they believe that that phase 2, the box et al., was about 30% complete after $118 million spent. Let's say 120. So, I mean, if just using that as a metric, if you factor that, you probably are talking maybe $360 million to be able to actually complete the box if you were really looking at everything that had to go in.
But I'm saying it that at the start, with all of the criticism, they could not say, how much it was going to cost. So if all of the transparency...
I want to deal with that because if in fact we assume that this is a situation that you need probably another $240 million to complete the box, and you compare that with the decision that has been made, which is to go forward and complete the original structure, still using some of the box aspects because the physiotherapy and the dialysis buildings were incorporated into that in any case, you still are ending up in a situation of savings because the government went out and was able to get the financing of $200 million from the Saudis, not only for the hospital, but also for retrofitting and improvement in the stadium.
I mean, I can't fathom what was going through this guy's mind. Okay? I mean, look, whatever people want to have said about the state of completion of phase 1 in 2016, at least I know it had electricals already run, it had plumbing run, it had none
medical
of
gases
those medical gases, none of this was in the box. The box that they keep talking about is a state of the art.
When we look at the air conditioning systems, which now had to be thrown away, $10 million worth of extra, which were left to decay effectively. The generator was actually already installed. There's an amazing amount of work that was already there, plus equipment.
Exactly. So, I mean, again, I find it laughable.
And the big question mark as to what happened to that equipment.
Again, I find the UWP's argument laughable. They want to chide and say this is not a complete hospital, I mean, which is pure foolishness. But they would want to suggest that the box, which, as far as I'm concerned, was a sieve, just any rain, any water will just think through. They want to say this was state of the art. I mean, how do you consider an incomplete structure, not even 30%, that leaking like box. An empty some things, no wall, no partition, no medical gases, no electric, and you're going to say that is state of the art.
If you're getting a gift for Christmas and you open the box and you say,
come on.
It definitely isn't a
We're just using words just loosely, like, I mean, I can't imagine it. I mean, it's you know, they say, when you know an issue, logic is what will apply. When you don't, emotion will. Maybe because I am familiar with the issues, I find those arguments there laughable because they're so illogical, they're untrue. I mean, to call an empty box.
but the UWP is operating within that space of persons just not knowing and understanding, perhaps.
Yes.
I mean, the issue of commissioning, for example, which is another issue. People somehow think that you can just commission overnight. And then, but I mean, we have been hearing a lot from the respective persons at St. Jude explaining that a commissioning is a process which takes some months. Sometimes can even take years.
It could take years.
I'm not asking for it to take years, of course, but I did know that just last year, the oxygen generator plant at OKU was only finally commissioned. So you do have sometimes that you get some phasing of these services coming on stream over a period of time.
I mean, the UWP should be ashamed of itself for any one of them. Because for 16 years, the people in the south of the island have been without a proper hospital. They've been without it. And I mean, this has been traumatic for all of us, for the entire nation. We all should be relieved, eager, anxious for this to be commissioned. And just say there should be no decline. I mean, what we should be, can you all hurry do this? That's all we should be saying. Can you hurry do this? And feel the relief that we are getting ever closer to that end. That's all we should be doing. Not bickering over whether, because what's going to make it is the technology that will be introduced there.
But the UWP is now also coming with a narrative that, well, why couldn't you all wait and call the election? So they now say, why couldn't you wait and call the election later on, right, when and after the hospital is commissioned? And so, I mean, is that a fair argument?
No, it's not a fair argument, because if for the UWPs, even if you had waited and commissioned, they would not have changed their mind and decided to want to vote for you. So that's the thing. What is embarrassing to them is that this structure is being utilized. I think this is the fundament, and that's why they're happy to latch onto the fact that part of the box is being used, for physiotherapy. So they're happy to say, but look, some of what we built is being used, as opposed to what your.
Well, it makes me remember a post from a UWP operative talking about the laundry and trying to criticize the laundry. Without them realizing that the laundry was still the original building, which was part of the quote-unquote phase one. Yes. So, It was not part of the box. There's no laundry in the box. There's no kitchen in the box. You know, there are a lot of services. There's no warehouse in the box. There's no power management system in the. You know, so there are a lot of things that are not in the box that are still already as part of the original building.
Again, it's just crazy. And if we even listen to the former Prime Minister talk about the box and what he intended to do, it's again a slap in our face. Because for him to have said, and again, is even of recency, it's not just when he said
not just that. The original plan, according to what we were told, is that it should be demolished. I don't know if you recall, former Minister Mary Isaac actually said that the plan was to demolish.
I'm thinking of even his box, talking about the ground floor being for locals and the top floor for international. I mean, what on earth are you talking about? It's a two-tier system, so locals will get bottom level service, and foreigners, international people, going to get another level.
I'm sorry, but that sounds a little bit of apartheid in terms of that approach. I don't know how that's
No, but that's what he said. And so when you look at it, his history of his statements, I mean, you want whose interest do you have? You want the bottom floor to have been used for locals and the top floor for quote-unquote international? Who are those internationals? So foreigners? I mean, and so people want to be surprised that his administration was chided as being for FF&F. I mean, this is just the craziness of what this, and we want to go back there? St. Lucians, come on. Don't let this man anywhere near any levers of power and influence in St. Lucia.
Darryl, before we end, because we're a little over time, we have to deal with one of the trinkets of health insurance. We're hearing a lot about that. Of course, it was promised year after year after year under the Alan Chassé administration, was never delivered. And we're hearing the same promise again. I'm almost certain at first they said $150,000 in the past. The figure has been revised, I think, to $75,000.
Well, he had 75 in the last election in 2021.
In the election, but I think before that, when he originally started talking about it, it was a different figure. He's come down, but he's not saying 75,000. Maybe he figures a little bit more realistic. But I'm trying to understand how that is in fact going to be funded. Because here you have an individual who is saying that the health and security levy, 2.5%, which is raising about $35 to $40 million per year, he wants to take that away. But then he's saying that he needs to raise $120 million per year to be able to support the health insurance coverage. And therefore, the big question is, how much are people expected to pay?
Yes.
In a premium.
Yes, this is just the craziness. And the thing is so ill-defined and stuff. Because for people with existing insurance, what happens to them and that package? Will there be any difference between families or households? Is there a cap on the contributions of a family or household? I mean, there are so many questions about that. So, I mean, everybody wants the insurance. And I'm not knocking the idea of having a health
everybody wants universal health care. Yes.
But I mean, let's be practical about what it is that we fund. And we're not going to buy, or people, be careful about buying jabber sack. Don't be sold, a false basket of services. And this is what is being thing there. They give you some trinket and throw some, like they take Twakat hustlers and stuff like that. They throw a little something, they do some dangling here. Whereas all the other things happening on that side, where it's going to cost you even more, or you will not get what you are seeking. Because who is going to pay? Where is that money coming from? You take out the tax here and you put it.
What is also very concerning, though, is that given his record of trying to bring in private sector players. Are we speaking about a private entity in terms of the insurance? Who's going to manage this? Because
it certainly could not be the state. Because
I've not heard any mention of NIC. I've not heard any mention of any authority.
Could it even be NIC? How is it going to be funded? It would have to be, because let's understand this. At $75,000 per person, that means $13-point-something billion in coverage, not in expenses. Let's make the distinction. It's not cost, but at least $13 billion in coverage. For any entity to cover that amount, they have to get their own pound of flesh. So what is the expectation of the morbidity. How many people will make claims over what time? How much will they be expected to pay? What is the cap on particular services? Will they get dental? Will they get vision? Is there a lifetime cap? What is? None of those things are being said. He just throw out a number, and so he expects people to just latch in on that number. But that's not how insurance works, and that's certainly not how he's going to develop a sustainable financial model for the people, unless you're going to tell them, I'm going to tax you somewhere else. And you see, again, it goes to he himself. In May of elections were in June of 2016. In May of 2016, he made the point that VAT is the most efficient and best means of collecting tax revenue.
Well, I think there was an interesting admission recently by him that his plan, and when he was asked, I think by the conversation with Lisa Joseph, I think it was, where he was the issue of him eliminating VAT, and he in fact admitted that the plan was to eliminate VAT, but to bring in another tax, a sales tax, which would have effectively been a less efficient tax in any case, but it would still have been a tax.
Yes, but he's on record in May of 2016, a couple of weeks before the election. The elections were June 6th. A couple of weeks before, I think May 16th, if I recall, May 16th in Grosile, he said the VAT is the most efficient.
Yes.
Most efficient. So you're going to introduce a tax measure.
Tax.
No, exactly, a less efficient tax measure. That's what, because he said the VAT is the most efficient, it's the most effective way of collecting. So now you're going to remove it to think. I mean, people, we have to go through some serious assessments, because even when all the touting of the 2.5 reduction in VAT, I mean, it's 2.5, everybody thinking. But let's get down to the practical at a household level and see how many people or who the real beneficiaries are.
Right.
I tell people, I ask, how many households in St. Lucia spend $1,000 a month on groceries? And it's a small percentage. A small percentage. Now, why do I ask 1,000? Because to save $25, you would have to spend $1,000. So in essence, the so-called big savings that people would be getting, for you to get $25, because for most persons, the VAT that they pay on is, because most persons do not buy car, and you certainly don't buy a car regularly. You don't buy appliances.
You're not renting a building regularly.
You're not renting a building, so none of those things.
Yes.
So for most households, their thing with VAT is at the
and
grocery
I've always
level.
knew that the effective rate, when you actually look at the cumulative effect of what people buy, that basket of goods, you were never really paying 15% value. It was actually closer to about 11% in any case when you average it all out.
The point is,
at the supermarket I'm speaking of.
Yeah, the point is that saving to an individual was negligible at the individual, but to the state, which is why he ended up having to introduce that $1.15 excise tax. Because once he had reduced the VAT from 15 to 12.5, there was a 54 million drop in government revenue.
Well, Mr. Montrop, we have scratched the surface. Maybe we can bring you back again. I know you have to be somewhere soon.
Yes.
So maybe we can definitely try to do this sometime again. But thanks very much for giving us your thoughts and analysis of the United Workers' Party and its platform in the upcoming general election on December the 1st.
Thank you.
And of course, to all our listeners, thanks very much. We hope you can be back tomorrow for another program of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Alex George Jr., saying goodbye.
All right.